So fame is very costly. If you're not careful on how to tame fame, then fame will tame you.
At 63, MC Hammer lives in a world most fans would never recognize. At his peak, he was everywhere, from MTV to Pepsi commercials, from magazine covers to sold-out world tours. He wasn't just a musician, he was a brand, a phenomenon, a walking symbol of success. He was worth over $70 million, and for a while, it felt like the money and fame would never end. But just as fast as he rose, it all fell apart. Today, he lives a life far removed from the glittering stages he once owned. And the story of how it all unraveled is one of the most heartbreaking tales in music history. Because while the world remembers his flashy pants and million-dollar smile, what they don't see is the quiet loneliness that came after the lights went out. Before the limos, the mansions, and the private jets, there was just Stanley Kirk Burrell, a determined young man from Oakland with a dream that seemed far too big for the streets he grew up on. Long before the world knew him as MC Hammer, he was the kid with endless energy, selling mixtapes out of the trunk of his car, dancing on street corners, and hustling outside the Oakland Coliseum, where he worked as a bat boy for the Oakland A's. He wasn't just another hopeful artist chasing fame. He was building it from scratch. Every handshake, every mixtape sold, every performance on a makeshift stage added up to something bigger, a movement waiting to explode. He watched the players, the fans, and the stars pass him by, and each time he promised himself that one day, people would chant his name just as loudly. That belief, that relentless drive, became the heartbeat of everything he did. When he finally broke into the music industry, it wasn't because someone handed him a contract. It was because he outworked everyone. He learned the business, produced his own material, and turned his natural charisma into a brand before the word branding even existed. His early albums like Let's Get It Started paved the way for something far greater. The album that would make him a global sensation, Please Hammer Don't Hurt 'Em. Released in 1990, that record wasn't just a hit, it was a phenomenon. It went diamond, selling more than 10 million copies in the United States alone. Songs like You Can't Touch This and Pray became instant anthems. Kids wanted to dance like him, adults couldn't resist his hooks, and suddenly, rap wasn't just for the streets, it was for everyone. Hammer bridged the gap between hip-hop and mainstream pop culture at a time when no one else dared to. What made him special wasn't just his music, it was his energy. Hammer smiled when other rappers scowled. He wore bright colors when others went dark. He brought positivity, family values, and spirituality into an art form that had been branded as rebellious and raw. He was clean, approachable, and electrifying. Parents trusted him, children adored him, and brands like KFC even signed him. The height of his success, Hammer was earning more than $30 million a year. He had sold out world tours, platinum plaques, and endorsement deals pouring in faster than he could count. His concerts weren't just shows, they were full-scale productions, complete with massive dance crews, fireworks, and choreography that redefined what a rap performance could be. He wasn't following trends, he was creating them. In a few short years, Hammer had gone from the streets of Oakland to the pinnacle of global superstardom. But beneath the cheering crowds and flashing cameras, a silent problem was beginning to form. Fame teaches many things: how to entertain, how to inspire, how to shine under pressure. But it rarely teaches when to slow down. And for MC Hammer, who had built his empire on motion, stopping wasn't part of the plan. Hammer didn't just live large, he lived like royalty. In Fremont, California, he built a 40,000 square foot mansion that could rival a palace. It was a palace fit for a king. Golden gates that shimmered in the California sun, marble floors that gleamed under chandeliers, waterfalls running through manicured gardens, and a swimming pool shaped like his own initials. MC Hammer's Fremont mansion wasn't just a home, it was a symbol of success. But behind its grandeur was a price tag that bled money every single day. Maintenance alone cost $500,000 a year, and that was just the beginning. Hammer's greatest expense wasn't the mansion, it was people. Out of loyalty and compassion, he hired more than 200 individuals, from bodyguards and dancers to cousins, childhood friends, and even neighbors.
It wasn't no secret, like everybody knew that I had 200 employees. It wasn't no secret, so we think I was paying them in
Some had clear roles. Others were simply there because he didn't have the heart to turn them away. His monthly payroll reached an unbelievable $1 million. He was paying out more money each month than most artists made in an entire year. To him, it wasn't about flexing wealth. It was about giving back. "I didn't just take the money to bless myself," he once said. "I used it to employ my community."
When you knew that I was employing 200 people for my community.
His generosity was genuine, but generosity without limits can be dangerous. He bought luxury cars, funded extravagant tours, and took his crew on first-class vacations. His stage shows featured 50 dancers, live bands, and elaborate pyrotechnics, all coming straight from his own pocket. For a while, Hammer was a one-man economy. But as the 90s rolled in, the music world changed. Gangsta rap dominated the charts, and audiences moved from flashy dance beats to raw street realism. Hammer's upbeat, family-friendly image suddenly seemed out of touch. Sales plummeted, yet the spending continued. By 1996, the inevitable happened. With debts exceeding $13 million, Hammer filed for bankruptcy. The man who once embodied success lost nearly everything: the mansion, the cars, and the entourage that once defined him. His fall wasn't just financial. It was emotional, public, and deeply humiliating. The man who once ruled the world's biggest stages was now learning the hardest lesson of all: how quickly fame can disappear. When news broke of Hammer's bankruptcy, the media turned him into a punchline. Comedians cracked jokes, tabloids mocked him, and critics who once praised him now called him reckless. Even inside the music industry, where loyalty is often fleeting, the silence around MC Hammer was deafening. People who once begged for his approval, producers, promoters, artists who had built their names through his success, suddenly stopped answering his calls. For a man who once seemed larger than life, that quiet rejection hit harder than any financial loss. It was the ultimate betrayal, to lose not only money, but also respect. In later interviews, Hammer opened up about what that period truly felt like. "Being broke wasn't the worst part," he said softly. "Losing who I thought I was, that was." It wasn't just a quote. It was a confession. The fame, the power, the entourage, all of it had been built around a version of himself that no longer existed. When it all disappeared, he had to face the person he was without the applause. Friends who'd once depended on him for paychecks or access vanished overnight. The house that once bustled with dancers, assistants, and cousins turned eerily still. For someone who had lived surrounded by noise, the silence was almost unbearable. He later reflected, "You find out who's real when the money's gone." That realization reshaped his entire view of fame. He saw how fast love could turn conditional when the spotlight faded. Still, the story didn't end there. Years later, as fans revisited his legacy online, a new narrative began to take shape. One that saw the man, not the myth. On Reddit, a user wrote, "He wasn't wasteful. He was generous to a fault." Another fan posted on Twitter, "MC Hammer didn't go broke buying cars. He went broke feeding families." Those words echoed across social media, transforming pity into respect. Because the truth is, Hammer's downfall was never about greed or ego. It was about loyalty. A loyalty that cost him millions, but revealed his heart. And even though that loyalty broke his empire, it also proved what kind of man he really was. By the early 2000s, Hammer's spotlight had faded completely. The man who once danced in gold pants now found himself fighting lawsuits over unpaid car payments and old business deals. Yet somehow, he found the strength to smile again. In a heartfelt sit-down with Oprah Winfrey back in 2011, MC Hammer revealed the kind of insight that only comes from losing everything and surviving it. Looking back on his rise and fall, he didn't flinch or make excuses. Instead, he said something that stunned everyone watching. "Would I go back and change things? No. If I change one thing, I lose everything else. The kids I have now, the relationships I have now, the peace I have now." It was one of those rare moments when an artist strips away the fame and speaks as a human being. For years, critics had painted him as reckless, foolish, and out of touch, but that single answer silenced them all. Hammer wasn't angry at anyone. He wasn't trying to rewrite history or plead for sympathy. He was content. There was something almost serene about his tone, as if he'd finally made peace with the ghosts of his past. After years of being judged for his choices, that moment showed a man who understood that his downfall had also been his deliverance. He no longer equated his value with the number in his bank account or the size of the crowd cheering his name. He'd come to see life as something deeper, a lesson wrapped in pain, a test wrapped in loss. Hammer had finally learned to separate his worth from his wealth. Still, peace doesn't erase the echoes of what came before. Even though he embraced faith, forgiveness, and humility, the scars of losing everything remained. Those closest to him have said that Hammer still wrestled with quiet regret, not for the money or the fame, but for the purpose that fame once gave him. For a man who spent years living at the center of noise, cameras, and constant movement, life without that rhythm felt like silence he had to learn to live with. He once described it as walking in the dark, not lost, but learning to trust the steps. That's the kind of transformation money can't buy. It's the story of a man who had to lose the world to finally find himself. Then something extraordinary happened. In 1997, Hammer said he experienced a spiritual awakening, a visitation, as he described it, from Jesus Christ himself. That moment became the turning point in his life.
See, fear is not of God.
After years of chaos and collapse, MC Hammer found himself standing at a different kind of stage, one without flashing lights or screaming fans. In 1997, he was ordained in the Church of God in Christ, dedicating his life to faith and service. What began as a private transformation soon became a public mission. Every Sunday night, he led hip-hop-style worship services at Jubilee Christian Center in Northern California. The man who once shouted, "Too legit to quit," now stood at a pulpit, raising his voice to declare, "Praise God." Gone were the glittering jackets, the gold chains, and the endless entourage. In their place stood a man dressed simply, a red blazer, black slacks, and a Bible in his hand. The same charisma that once filled arenas now filled a church. Hammer preached about redemption, about finding light in failure, and about the kind of second chances money could never buy. "God had to take my money away to get my heart," he told the congregation, a line that would become the foundation of his testimony. And the people came. Every week, the pews filled with teenagers, families, and even fans who once danced to his records, but now came seeking something deeper. They didn't just come to see a celebrity-turned-preacher. They came because they believed him. The energy he once gave to entertainment, he now poured into his ministry. His words carried weight because he'd lived the pain he was preaching about. Before long, his transformation caught national attention. The Trinity Broadcasting Network invited him to host a Christian talk show. His first guest was Smokey Robinson, another artist who'd walked the line between fame and faith. Together, they spoke about redemption, music, and the spiritual journey that follows brokenness. This wasn't the showman who'd once danced in front of thousands. This was a man reborn, humble, grateful, and grounded. Yet, even with all the good he was doing, the world refused to let go of the old narrative. To many, he was still the rapper who went broke. For decades, that label followed him, overshadowing the far greater truth. MC Hammer didn't just rebuild his life, he rebuilt his soul. And in doing so, he found something far more powerful than fame. Fast forward to today, MC Hammer lives a peaceful, private life in the Bay Area. He's far from the limelight, but he's anything but idle. He's become an entrepreneur in the tech industry, investing in Silicon Valley startups like Bump Technologies and Square long before they were famous. He mentors young innovators, gives motivational talks, and occasionally steps back into the spotlight for nostalgic performances. But unlike before, there are no dancers, no flashing lights, just Hammer, a microphone, and fans singing along to "You Can't Touch This." His home is modest, his circle small, and his focus simple: faith, family, and gratitude. On social media, he posts Bible verses, uplifting messages, and reminders to stay positive. One of his posts read, "Faith, family, focus. Everything else is noise." But despite his peace, the world often mislabels his life as sad. Tabloids use that word because they can't comprehend a superstar choosing simplicity. They see the absence of wealth as failure. Hammer sees it as freedom. He's no longer chasing the world's applause. He's chasing something eternal. And that might be the greatest success of all. Of course, not everything in MC Hammer's later life has been easy. Time may have softened his struggles, but the sting of mockery never fully faded. For years after his bankruptcy, late-night hosts and magazines used his name as a punchline. They exaggerated his story, turning him from a cultural icon into a cautionary tale, the rapper who flew too close to the sun. It became almost fashionable to laugh at his downfall, to use "going hammer broke" as slang for bad financial decisions. But what few people ever bothered to see was the human being behind that joke. Hammer has admitted that being the butt of those jokes hurt deeply. He'd spent years trying to rebuild not just his finances, but his dignity. He once said that it's strange to become a meme of your own pain, to see your hardest chapter turned into entertainment for others. And yet, even in that, he found grace. Rather than lash out or carry bitterness, he chose humility. When people teased him, he smiled. When the internet recycled his bankruptcy headlines, he shrugged. In one of his own tweets, he joked, "Can't touch this wisdom." That one line captured everything about who he had become: self-aware, at peace, and unshaken. That sense of humor, mixed with quiet strength, became his armor. It allowed him to live beyond the shadow of his past, to continue inspiring without defending himself. But no matter how positive he remained, the sadness lingers in how the world still chooses to see him. Most remember the dancer, the millionaire, the man in flashy suits commanding the stage with 50 backup performers. Few remember the father, the husband, the preacher, or the man who used his money to employ hundreds and feed his community. It's a painful reminder of how society defines success, not by who you are, but by what you have. In that sense, Hammer's story is bigger than music. It's a reflection of our culture's obsession with status and how quickly we discard people once the spotlight fades. And maybe that's the quiet tragedy of MC Hammer's life, that he learned wisdom, grace, and purpose, but the world still measures him by the riches he left behind. Decades after his fall, Hammer's music still echoes across generations. On TikTok, "You Can't Touch This" has been used in millions of videos. Kids who weren't even born when he topped the charts are now dancing to his beat. Artists like Usher, Bruno Mars, and Chris Brown all cite him as inspiration. His choreography, stage design, and fusion of dance and rap laid the groundwork for the modern performers we see today. He made hip-hop not just heard, but seen. Even in fashion, the infamous Hammer pants still make a comeback every few years. They've become a symbol of nostalgia, a tribute to an era when music was fun, bold, and unapologetically entertaining. But Hammer's greatest legacy isn't the music or the dance moves or the money. It's his humanity. The man who gave everything to others, who fell, who got back up, and who found peace. He once said, "Success isn't when the world claps for you. It's when you can look in the mirror and smile." After everything he's endured, that quote feels like the perfect summary of his life. So, when people say, "Remember MC Hammer? How he lives at 63 is just sad," maybe they're missing the point. Because the real sadness isn't his life. It's the way we measure success. He lost millions, but gained meaning. He lost fame, but found faith. He lost everything money could buy, and discovered what it couldn't. For him, sadness was the path to peace. He no longer needs applause to feel alive. The same man who once filled stadiums with thunderous cheers now finds purpose in quiet prayers. He's learned that true riches don't come from record sales. They come from redemption. And in a world obsessed with comebacks, maybe MC Hammer's greatest victory was realizing he didn't need one. He didn't need to reclaim the spotlight. He just needed to reclaim himself. So yes, to some, his story sounds sad. But to those who look deeper, it's something else entirely. It's inspiring. Because MC Hammer didn't just survive fame, he outgrew it. And maybe, in that simple truth, lies the most powerful lesson of all. Sometimes, the loudest success comes after the music fades.